Hello and welcome to the Exaltify Me podcast, the place where we dive deep into psychology, into trauma, and into happy life. My name is Nenad Leonart, and obviously, when you have heard this, you think, well, there's 1,000 other podcasts doing the exact same thing. Why should I listen to this one? Well, I will tell you right now. The reason being that I have tried different things, many different things, over and over and over again. In fact, I was depressed when I was 12 years old. That was 20 years ago, right now. That was like my first really deep issue that I felt at the time and that I knew, well, something is wrong. And for almost 20 years, I have been looking at different methods, different things. I went into escapism, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, moving into arts, trying to express myself, trying to find many different solutions. I was in psychotherapy. I tried out many different things like mindfulness, like letting go techniques, like whatever it was that I was trying out. I never really worked at the core. I never really kind of allowed myself to see what made me me and what kind of created this identity that I have today. So also what I want to talk to you about today is survival and happiness and how they are kind of mutually exclusive, why that is, and how we can move towards living a happy life instead of going into survival mode. That's going to be the topic of today. Before we go into there, let me just talk a little bit more why it's so important to listen to exactly this topic. Because most of us, as humans, and now we are creating a society, we have all built this society on surviving. Right? If you think about it, thousands of years ago, even a couple hundred years ago, even a couple decades ago, and even today in other countries, people are struggling to survive. There's this looming doom over their heads, right? That is kind of, if you don't do this or that, you're going to lose your existence. Your family's going to go hungry. You will have nowhere to go. And we see this even in the countries as the US, which is supposedly one of the most developed countries in the world. Well, so many people are just living in the streets because they cannot afford a normal life. They sleep in their cars or they literally sleep under the bridge. And there is nobody taking care of them, nobody no system in the country that kind of captures them and doesn't let them fall through the net, right? There's the preconceived notion of the American dream where if you just work hard enough, you can do whatever you want to do. And there's a lot of veterans, for example, on the streets that have worked very hard, that have been defending their country, and yet nothing happened. In fact, they're worse off than they ever been before, and many of them slide into drugs. I've talked to a couple of them firsthand, how it felt like coming home, how it felt like having all that trauma, and just losing touch with society. Like it just kind of moves past them, right? So our whole society, even if they don't say that it's built on survival. Politicians will not say that. Politicians will always talk about ideals and about dreams and maybe put your attention to some details that aren't really good enough right now so that we can improve. But most of the time, it's just their political agenda. And most of the time, when they get elected, they don't really live up to that expectation. So now we have been focusing a lot on the outside, how our society is kind of masking this survival mode. And again, this comes back from many years ago. There's still countries in this world where people go hungry. And many of our ancestors did go hungry over and over and over again. So we kind of have built up a better standard of living, although most of us have inherited this fear of loss of existence, this fear of going hungry, this fear of what if what I'm doing isn't going to be good enough to survive. And when I see people all around me, I'm talking now about my generation, like my friends, so many say, well, it's weird. You kind of get thrown into life. You get to be like this grown-up person, right? And nobody told you that you have to do so many things you don't want to do. And you are working for others. You're not working for yourself. It's just to pay your existence. You need to pay rent. You need to pay your groceries. You need to pay the taxes. You need to pay. So there's so much that you need to pay, and you work so much just to be able to exist in modern day society, which is crazy, actually, right? Nobody prepared us for that. And what's going on there? Again, it is from previous times some sort of attachment to this idea that we need to struggle to survive. I know that of myself, when I started going into a kind of a therapy, a body awareness course with a woman, she was working with me one-on-one. She's an angel, by the way. Like the stuff she does is absolutely amazing, and I'm very lucky to have met her and that she worked with me. One of the first things that she said was, wow, there's a lot of expectations that you have on your shoulders. And the second thing was, you have attached work with struggle. So in my head and in my whole being, it wasn't able to perceive work as something that could be enjoyed. If I was to work, it was to ensure my survival, and it was supposed to be not fun. And this was just a made-believe that was going past generations. Then I looked at my family history, how my parents thought of like their life, how my grandparents struggled, and so on. And then I figured, yeah, this is just like something that I inherited from way back when the world was indeed working that way. And today we have so many possibilities. We have so much freedom. We can do whatever we want, and yet we don't do that. Why? Because we are still stuck in the beliefs of our ancestors. And we, quote unquote, have the freedom, but it's just out of reach. It's outside, and there's no chance for us to anyhow get to it. Now, I realized this with my reason. That was a couple years back. I knew, hey, okay, so that's what's going on. This is going on with the world, that's going on with me. I want to change that. And yet I had no idea how to change it. Absolutely no idea. And then I tried different things. I tried to force myself. I tried to work on beliefs. You've probably heard about affirmations. If you're into personal development, then you just go and talk to yourself. I am happy with my work. I do all the things that I enjoy. And you tell it to yourself over and over again. Why do you need to tell that to yourself over and over again? Because deep down you don't really believe it. And that's what I love about this paradox. Whenever you have to tell yourself something, you don't really, deep down, you don't really believe it. There's this wonderful quote from Game of Thrones where everybody's using and abusing it, but I really think it applies to this paradox extremely, where you have Joffrey, where he goes like, I am the king. And then his grandfather goes to him and says, any king that needs to say that he's the king is no true king. right? So if you have to tell yourself that you are happy, deep down, you're not really happy. If you have to tell yourself that you enjoy life or what you do, deep down, you don't enjoy life and you're not really happy. So what do we do with this? Where do we go from here? Right? Boom, paradigm shattered. Okay, so whatever I say to myself is not necessarily the truth. And often, in case of affirmations, it's the opposite, right? It's, I mean, again, when you say something, there's probably a part of you deep inside that thinks the exact opposite. I am worthy. I'm totally unworthy. I am happy. I'm miserable. You know? And the way to go about this is to go and address that exact part. Give it space and own it. Because again, this is a part of you. What happens if you just push it away and you say, I don't want to deal with that. I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Period. What happens is you take this part that says, I'm unhappy, and you squash it, you disown it, you just like stuff it away, and you create a barrier in between. And this barrier, you can call it conscious, unconscious. You can also call it the ego. You know, when people kind of go into this state where they start defending themselves and where they go like snapping back at you, or you see this shift where they suddenly put themselves above you and then talk down to you. Or maybe they retreat and then they feel like you are above them, and then they start talking up to you and that they're like kind of fearful. All of these symptoms are the symptoms of the ego, right? And what's the ego? The ego is the protection of everything that's been stuffed down. So that's all in the subconscious. That's all really scary and we don't want to deal with it. And the ego goes around and just kind of protects it. I know that I have been doing that all of my life. It took me over 20 years to realize that I have an ego and what that ego exactly does. And I remember when I got that, it was like a huge bell that just got rung and it reverberated through my whole being, and I kind of just woke up. And I went like, oh my God, this is what I have been doing, and it's not the truth at all. It does not represent anything of what's even remotely real. One of the examples for me was, and I think I even brought this up in the past, but one of the examples was I would have friends and then maybe they would just go and do something without me. Like they, I don't know, went for drinks or went to play a game or whatever it was. And then I would feel so left out and would trigger something in me, right? And instead of really going into that feeling and going, I'm sad, I feel lonely, I feel left out. Why didn't they invite me to this thing? Which they might have even just forgotten. They may have done the thing spontaneously and just I wasn't around and they still did it. But I was too proud to address these feelings right in the moment, right? So I was just not wanting to go into these feelings of sadness, of loneliness, of whatever. So what did I do instead? I said, I don't want to feel that. Even though it came up, right? Even though I started feeling those things, I'm like, no, push that away, get away. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show my friends, right, that I'm much better than them, that I'm going to have much more fun, that I'm going to have much more better friends, and that we're going to do many fun things that they're going to be jealous of. right? And then I'm gonna throw myself into work, and then I'm gonna become even better than I already am, and they're just gonna be jealous because they're spending their time with these stupid things, and I'm doing like meaningful stuff that is going to change my life, and then I'm all of that, right? And the mechanism of these thoughts, it's always like, I'm gonna be better than, I'm gonna show them, I'm gonna be different. So whenever that happens, whenever you hear this inner dialogue going on inside of you, you can know for sure that this is the ego talking, and it's going to try to mask something up, some feeling that you don't want to feel, and going to go the opposite direction. In my case, what was it? It was feeling inferior and lonely because I wasn't part of that experience. So the ego would go like, no, I am actually superior, and they just don't realize. I'm going to show them, and I'm going to be even more anti-lonely than all of them. So they are going to be feeling lonely, and I'm going to be the happy one. That's how it works. And guess what it does? It does nothing. I mean, it does nothing good. It's not going to improve the relationship to these friends. It's not really going to happen that you one day wake up and be super fulfilled and everything that your ego wanted is going to make you happy or connected or fulfilled or any of this. That's just not going to happen. And you see this with so many people that have put everything in their career. They sacrificed their families, they sacrificed their private lives, they sacrificed everything, which is crazy. They sacrificed everything just so they can be successful, to show everybody else, right? Maybe to even make their parents proud, maybe just to show them that they're better than they are. What ends up happening? They end up being super lonely. They end up buying luxury, very expensive things, spending a lot of money on commodities that don't really fulfill them. You buy a new thing, you probably know that. You treat yourself to, like a new phone, or you get a new gadget, new computer, new shoes, whatever it is. And then you walk around. In a couple days, you feel really happy about yourself because you got this new thing, right? And it's making your life better. But after a couple days, the happiness fades off. Like the dopamine kicks that we have from it, the satisfaction, it's gone, and we're back to the usual shitty me. And what goes from there, right? We need either one next thing that's going to make us happy, or we could actually start to look at what's going on there and start dealing with it. That's why I call today's episode Happiness and Survival. Survival and happiness. Because the both are mutually exclusive. So you could see the ego and what's going on there as survival. You could see that it kind of registers something in our psyche going on, in our whole being. There's something brewing up, right? Some emotions that we don't want to feel. And then it kind of tries to regulate these emotions because it knows if I keep feeling that, I'm just going to drown. I'm not going to be able to exist. I can't perform. I can't take care of my food. I can't take care of myself, my family, like whatever. I think this is a very, very old mechanism, right? So what it does is it splits it off so it can survive. And this is happening with anything that's traumatic. Trauma is basically just something being thrown into your system that is so strong that it kind of destabilizes the system, and the system cannot function as is. So what the system does, it has to like package it off and throw it away. and it doesn't really throw it away, it just packs it away. But the reason between this and the attic, like you can just bring your stuff to the attic and it's up there, and maybe you know that it's there sometimes and you can access it, but with the ego or with the packing things away that you want to be protected from, thing is, it's like having a bouncer that's at the door and he needs to keep the door shut. He needs to like really hold it, and the more things you throw in there, the more energy you need to hold down that door so it doesn't open. And you will notice that you get triggered when this energy depletes. And you will get triggered more and more. So like when we are in our everyday lives, right? You can really notice when you get triggered or when something scratches you and you have like this crazy emotional responses that are not appropriate to the situation at all. And so it kind of just goes out, kind of goes out the door and a little bit overloads the system again, which is not ideal, right? Let's say that it kind of hijacks you and puts you back into the emotions that you were stuffing away in the first place. Well, imagine now you don't get enough sleep, you don't have good food, or don't eat enough, you get hungry, you are getting triggered over and over again. So like the strength that this bouncer has and the stamina depletes faster. And then you get triggered more and more. So you will have better access to the shit that's stored away if you don't sleep enough, if you don't eat well, if you like go hungry, if you get triggered a lot. That can be useful if you want to work with these things. The ego is kind of stronger if you are more rested because it has more energy to stuff everything away and then to kind of guide you through your day. And sometimes you will see throughout this podcast that sometimes we want to deliberately trigger ourselves. We want to deliberately see ourselves poking at what's inside of that scary, scary room, right? The monster's in the closet, the bouncer is trying to keep them away, but they sometimes poke through. We want to actually go poking at them so they can come out. And then we go, oh, so that's another issue that I'm having that goes way back that I've stuffed down, so I can actually go and look at it. And what's the reason to look at it? Well, the reason is to see what you have packed away so you can actually reintegrate it into your own being. The reason is that you want that part that you've split off to say, wait, this is a part of me, and I'm going to acknowledge everything that has to do with this part. It's all the emotions, all the things that I didn't want to feel, or the thoughts that I didn't want to think with this. And I'm going to acknowledge it, and I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to integrate it into my own being, and ultimately start loving that part as well. That's the secret to self-love. That's the secret of how you can actually sustainably be in love with yourself, take care of yourself, go into relationship with yourself, is by finding out what these parts are and then just embracing them and reintegrating them into your own being, who you are. Now, this is much easier said than done, and that is why there are different techniques and different methods to go about this. And I found that for myself, it works to have a mix. It's not just about feeling, it's not just about thinking. The body is also part of it, right? So we store a lot of information in our bodies. There is a body remembrance, there is psychosomatic things going on. There is really, really a lot of stuff going on that needs to be addressed when we want to reintegrate these parts. And it's really good to work from different angles, because not always will an angle work for the same thing in the same way. And you also get to know yourself better from different perspectives. Now, having said all that, it's probably also important to say why and how these things are different from each other, right? Happiness and all the things that's going on when we are happy, and survival and all the things that are going on when we're in survival. Let's start with the one big difference. And I mean, I said happiness because we want to be happy. We want to feel happy. What we actually want to be is fulfilled. We want to actually be living. We want to be living our life. We want to be having all the wonderful things and experiencing all the wonderful things that life has in store for us. This, however, also means that in order to be able to do that, we need to experience the things that we would rather not experience. So maybe the term isn't happiness. Maybe the term is fulfillment that leads to a lasting happy life. We can't be happy all the time because this is just not how we are built. That's just not how the system works. And if you try to be, again, we have a system that tries to be happy all the time. And what it does is whenever something comes into it that's not really happy, it kind of stuffs it away. And what this does is it takes even away from the moments where you could be truly happy, but you aren't. How often were you on vacation, or were spending time with your loved ones, or with your friends, or, just taking a walk at sundown, or maybe having like a drink in a beautiful place, looking at a beautiful scenery, and you just weren't able to enjoy yourself. You were just stuck in your loops, in your problems, in your ego, in whatever you were thinking. Can you imagine how much of life just got wasted? Just got wasted because we weren't able to accept that life is more and has more to it than just feeling happy all the time. So the key to happiness, to be able to experience happiness, is fulfillment. And fulfillment is experiencing everything that life has to offer to its fullest. That's the big distinction that I think many get it wrong, and it's really important for me to stress. I cannot stress this enough. It's really, you need to accept all of life so that you can experience happiness and bliss. And now let's move on to some other differences between happiness or fulfillment and survival. People that are mostly in survival mode, again, I've talked about the ego, but like, what are the characteristics? What will you see? You will see a very strong sense of black and white thinking, just like going into extremes, not being able to perceive or to feel that things can be on a spectrum. Their world is very dual. They're kind of hardened. You will see them not having many different emotions or expressing emotions. They are going to be very, very hard, like almost brittle, in a sense of that they stick to this one thing, or they have like this one method, or they have like this one idea, and then everything revolves around that. What is also part of survival is kind of not getting too near to anything, keeping their distance, trying to not let anything touch them too much. So they will never really create a truly meaningful relationship. They will never go into, let's say, talking about truth. They will always try to be political. And this is the next part, manipulation. A lot of people that you see, or well, all of people that you see, they're being manipulative, that are trying to stay in control, that are trying to manage others and just like, get a bigger piece of the cake. They're also in survival. They're lacking, right? As opposed to that, people who are truly happy, you will see that they are expressing a wide range of emotions. They can actually look at you and really connect with you. They're quite soft, as in not really confrontative, but more just going with the flow, adapting to every moment, and enjoying these, right? People who are happy are more concerned with their well-being. They're taking care of themselves, and they're much more inner focused. They're looking that their needs are being met. They can also kind of separate themselves, like set healthy boundaries when something doesn't work for them, and they can also be assertive, as opposed to feeling overly responsible for others or not being able to set boundaries and then trying to be super manipulative and maybe even like aggressive towards others and throwing off responsibility to others. So happy people, fulfilled people, they take responsibility for themselves and they are self-reliant. They know what they need to do to survive, but then they do a lot more than just survive. And they take care of themselves, like what they really need. Okay? And they're able to express gratitude. They're able to express love. They're able to express fear. They're able to express anything because there is no inhibition. There is nothing that is being split off. And they're usually, I say this, usually very pleasant to be around with. Now, certain people will still have a strong emotional response about this and then get triggered. Why? Because happy people, fulfilled people, they have kind of a different set of rules to them. They have a different set of principles that they live by. And many people that are in their survival, that have a lot of expectancy on life, on themselves, on others, they will have a huge problem with accepting different beliefs, different rules, and they will even feel threatened about that. They will go like, oh, this person dressing in this weird way, we don't accept that. That's a no-go. And then even take it personally, right, to the next level. And if you just think about this from a very, very even logical standpoint, why would anybody get remotely offended about anybody else dressing a certain way? Why? There is literally no reason, no logical explanation. But if you go into, okay, let's create a world with all these rules and all these expectancies and all these things where we kind of make believe just so we can create classes and hierarchies and who is important, who's the boss, and who has got to say something. Well, that's what you get, right? And if you have anything to take away from today's episode, I really hope that it's this: a differentiation between happiness, or let's say fulfillment, and the softness it comes with, like just the easiness of life that it brings with it. And on the other hand, the harshness of survival, the brittleness of ego, and again, It's not a duality. We are all on a spectrum, right? I have my moments where I go into my ego and I just like sometimes even lose it. But then it's also about reconnecting and saying, oh, so I just went this weird path and it just kind of happened to me. I got triggered and then this movie started going, like it was a whole program that I played through. And then I came out and I became aware that I went through the program. So as we will see in a future episode, getting triggered is actually really, really great because it allows us to go and look at what's deeper. What is at the cause? What's the root of all this that's happening? And maybe it is something that is as beautiful of an experience that you can take away from. That you can go, oh, so that's my ego. And actually experiencing life isn't in the ego. Experiencing and enjoying life is something else, allowing it to happen. So if you have any questions, any remarks, any comments, do let me know. Write them down below. Reach out to me via email. You know where to find me. I am happy for each and every response that I get because this is what keeps me going. And this is also something that lets me know what is better content for you and what are the things that you want to talk about. What's the thing that you want to find out about? So we're going to look at all that in the future episodes. Until then, take care of yourself, stay happy and fulfilled, and look at your ego. Maybe take it a little bit humorously and write these things down, right? When they come up, that's gold. Write them down so you can look at it in the future. Take care and see you in the next one.